Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for a true rarity. We're going to be opening up the very difficult to find variant edition of Visions boosters. Now, one of the things that makes these boosters special is they were actually available before the set was released. So these special packs were printed in 1996, but the set actually didn't release until 1997. So there are some variant differences between the packs, starting with the artwork. This one uses the artwork from Undo by Therese Nielsen, where standard Vision boosters actually feature Kaja Foglio's Teferi's Puzzle Box artwork. On top of that, when you take a look on the back of the booster pack, it becomes very evident you have something different than normal, as it says, you hold in your hands a special look ahead into the world of Dominia. Oh, I love the old names, yes. The tranquil world of Mirage has been shattered by ambition and war, and peace can only return if the warriors of Jamura uncover the portents hidden within their dreams. You too can witness the future in Vision's special limited edition preview boosters. So, this is pretty exciting. These were only available inside of the Multiverse gift box, which is a special box set released back in 1996. If you're interested in learning all the contents of that, I do actually have an opening video covering that as well. It will be in the playlist at the end of this video. Now that we have taken a look at the outside, let's get ready to get inside this. Now, there are 10 different cards that exist within this particular subset that basically are printed slightly different than the original printings. In fact, these special boosters really only give you access to a portion of the cards that are available inside of the set, right? And we're actually starting out, funnily enough, with the rare. I want you to bear in mind, this is the level of rare we used to get back in the day. This is the Lycanthrope. It's 2 green and 3 for a 5/5. And for each 1 damage dealt to it, you put a -1/-1 counter on it instead. It literally almost has its own version of Infect that only affects itself negatively. And then, during your upkeep, remove one of these -1/-1 counters from Lycanthrope. So, the flavor concept behind this is actually really cool. It's a beast that is basically made out of like moss lichen, right? But the thing is, it can regrow itself as a result. That's the idea. As it takes damage, you're kind of destroying this moss, right? But then it grows itself back slowly, getting you to remove one -1/-1 counter a turn, essentially going, I am regrowing, I am being rebirthed. I remember trying to play with this card and learning very, very rapidly that it is genuinely, truly dreadful. I mean, look at that casting cost. 5 mana for a 5/5 that is just gonna shrink. Wow, I blocked your 2/2 with it. Great, now he's a 3/3. Give me 2 turns, I'll be back to 5/5. This is so bad. And this is the rare. How crazy is that? There were actually only 4 different rares available in these special boosters, and basically they're all worthless except for one, and I did not hit the lottery ticket. So let's move on from this disappointment into vampirism. Whoa, check out this artwork. I always thought this was crazy. 1 black and 1 for an enchant creature. Draw a card at the beginning of the upkeep of the turn after vampirism comes into play. How clunky is that compared to cards that just say, draw a card when this comes into play, right? But these are the old days where things moved way more slowly. So you basically had to deal with the fact that you're getting the card next turn's upkeep, right? So, enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control. All other creatures you control get -1/-1. Now, by today's standards, again, this is not a good card, right? Getting to beef up a dude, but you also have to minus all your other guys just to give a +1/+1 is terrible. But from a flavor perspective, this is awesome. The idea is one of your characters has turned into a vampire, one of your creatures is a vampire, and they're feeding on all the rest of them. And that's why they're stronger and all your other creatures are weaker, because they're constantly being drained for blood, and this vampire creature is just going nuts feeding on the blood. And the artwork is absolutely intense. You've got the vampire, she's hanging there upside down in the front, And then in the background, you've got all these other regular individuals who look all pale and pallid because they've been having their blood drained. Like, how absolutely insane is that? And actually, this is one of the 10 cards that does have a little bit of a difference in terms of basically what they did is they cropped the artwork a little differently. You honestly have to have a regular version and this version side by side to really be able to compare them effectively. But the artwork has been cropped differently, and just so you know, these cards will also show a 1996 copyright. Moving on, we've got Ovinomancer. Here is another one of the 10 cards that has slightly different artwork cropping. So, 1 blue and 2 for a 0/1 sorcerer. Honestly, this guy was like pretty much my favorite card from Visions when it came out because he's so ridiculous. When he comes into play, return 3 basic lands you control to owner's hand, or you have to bury him. And bury means destroy without possibility of regeneration. Under current wording, he would basically say, return 3 lands to owner's hand, basic lands to owner's hand, or you have to sacrifice him, right? And then tap him, return Ovinomancer to owner's hand, bury target creature, and put a sheep token into play under the control of the creature's controller. Treat this token as a 0/1 green creature. So I loved this for multiple reasons, right? First of all, the artwork is absolutely ridiculous. Like, the sorcerer himself, his big goofy face and his mouth open, look, get some, as he snaps his fingers and turns this soldier behind him into a sheep, is absolutely amazing, right? Like, that is such fun flavor. And the idea behind just, I have a sheepmancer, that is great. But you got to bounce 3 lands when you use them. Or I should say, when you put him out. And then you have to bounce him when you use him. So it's slow, clunky, and ineffectual. But from a flavor perspective, an absolute gorgeous home run, right? I love this card. And honestly, the game was slower to the point where this guy could kind of do something, but admittedly, he's not that hot. Moving on. We've got, oh yeah, a Goblin Recruiter! At least I scored 1 card out of here that has some value afterwards. Yeah. Goblin Recruiter's gross, man. 1 red and 1 for a Goblin, it's 1/1. When it comes into play, search your deck for any number of Goblin cards, reveal the cards to all players, shuffle your library, put the cards on top of your library in any order. Flavor text says, next! He's just recruiting everybody, right? He's got no conditions, really. Hey, are you alive? Great, you're in. You know what I mean? So, when this card first came out, people would use it for its actual purpose, stacking the goblins they wanted on top of their deck. But in more current times, Goblin Recruiter is used more in a way to just make sure there's enough cards on top of your deck to be able to set off combos and things like that. So you can use him specifically just as a Goblin tribal guy in a great capacity, but he is also a useful tool for combo decks to mess about with as well. And the artwork is fun because you have the Recruiter there. He's standing there with a piece of paper. He looks so unimpressed. He's got an arrow through his ear. Like, you literally have the one Goblin who fired his bow, and then he's managed to get his arrow through the ear of the Recruiter. You got another Goblin who's literally pointing at him and laughing, and he's just like, next, yeah, you're in the army. I can't believe this is my job. That's what you get when you're a slightly competent Goblin who can read. All right, what do we got next? Giant Caterpillar. All right, 1 green and 3 for a 3/3. Pay 1 green, sacrifice Giant Caterpillar, put a butterfly token into play at end of turn. Treat this token as a 1/1 green creature with flying. I loved this card when it came up for a couple of reasons. First, just a gigantic caterpillar was such a wonky thing to me. It's like, I summon up a dragon. Yeah, check it out. I summon up a giant caterpillar. Oh no, he's over there eating trees. It's just silly, right? But on top of that, really hard to get green flyers back in the day. So the fact that you could turn this into a 1/1 flyer as well and get additional value out of it felt really, really good to me. And you have to remember as well that this is back in the day where damage used to actually go on the stack. So you could do really weird things where you can literally go, okay, I'm going to block your creature with my caterpillar. And then I'm going to sacrifice my caterpillar to get a 1/1. But I do that after damage is on the stack. So basically it's the best of both worlds, where I get to deal 3 damage to my opponent's creature that I've blocked, and I will also get the 1/1. The rules don't work that way anymore, but it did make the caterpillar more enjoyable, right? I love the size of it. You got these little antelopes or whatever grazing in the background. I dig it. I dig the artwork. I don't know, there's just something about this card. I love the nostalgia. Oh, there we go. We got the card that is literally the artwork on the pack there. So, 2 blue and 1 for Undo. It's a sorcery that says return 2 target creatures to owner's hand. This is pretty solid, straight up. Back in the day, 3 mana to bounce 2 creatures was really, really good. Yeah, you can't use it if they only have 1 creature because it doesn't say up to 2 creatures, so you'd have to target 1 of your creatures. But overall, for what you could get from this was pretty decent, man. And basically, flavor text says, oft have I wished to undo past deeds, but never did I imagine they would be undone for me. And that is from Nemaya, Ephemera Philosopher. That is cool, honestly. I really dig that. And the artwork looks awesome. You can see literally people being undone by cascading magic. This is beautiful artwork. Moving on. We've got Wicked Reward. So Wicked Reward is another one of those 10 cards that has different cropped artwork. It's 1 black and 1 for an instant. Sack a creature. Target creature gets +4/+2 until end of turn. Wow, this is awful. Wow. Okay. The blood on my hands is merely proof of my ambition. Karvik, you need better ambition. This is a terrible card. The artwork's incredible, though. It looks awesome. Look at this guy standing here with the sacrificial blade, like drawing power out of some crazy serpent. Like, that's mega intense. And like, as a concept, the idea of this sacrificial magic is cool, but man, is this a bad card. Moving on. Dark Privilege. We have a lot of black boost spells in this pack, eh? Dark Privilege is another one of those special cropped cards. So, 1 black and 1 for an enchant creature. It gives +1/+1, sack a creature, regenerate enchanted creature. This feels better to me than Vampirism. You just give the creature a bonus, and you can feed other creatures to keep regenerating, right? It says, as you breathe your last, understand why I accept such forbidden gifts. Man, there's a lot of feeding on people going on in Visions. And that is, it's attributed to Parage of Urborg. Cool. I like the artwork too, man. Look at that. You got the big old gauntlet of life juice. Let me splorp some of that up, big boy. Moving on. Oh, Knight of the Mists. This is really cool, man. I always thought this card was straight up funky. 1 blue and 2 for a 2/2 Knight. It's got Flanking, which is a wonky old ability that says whenever a creature without flanking blocks this creature, basically it gets -1/-1 till end of turn. It's pretty underwhelming, right? It basically goes, yo, you're going to block me? You're a little bit smaller. But what was really cool about it is when Knights of the Mist comes into play, pay 1 blue or bury target knight. Now, that doesn't have to mean your knight. So if your opponent is playing white knights, black knights, and those things were fairly common back in the day, all of a sudden now you don't have to pay the 1 blue to keep your dude, because if he's the only knight, you have to pay a blue or you get smoked, right? All of a sudden you don't have to pay that, and you can just go, I'll destroy your white knight or your black knight or whatever. And like, there was a bunch of knights back then, and it felt really cool because it's like, whoa, so these mists, like the mists coalesce around a knight and just tear it apart, like, but only knights? Like, it's this ancient spirit of a knight that's somehow made into mist and like hates the living or something like that, so it like tears them apart, but only knights that reminded of what it's lost. I don't know, there's just epic flavor, and the artwork looks awesome too, right? This knight on his horse with the shield and everything kind of charging off into the mists looks absolutely good, man. After that, we got Warrior's Honor. So Warrior's Honor is 1 white and 2 for an instant. All creatures you control get +1/+1 till end of turn. We are bound together as the reeds of a basket. And that's a quote from Azmira, Rashida, and Jabari's... Oh, it's a unity chant. Okay, all right. So they chant this... And, whoa, she better not raise her arms any higher. That shirt, honey, your shirt, don't lift your arms. Actually, maybe do. Anyways, this is an awful card. Let's be real. This is not a powerful card. Moving on. A Bull Elephant. This is also on the list of cards that have had their artwork cropped. 1 green and 3 for a 4/4 elephant. When it comes into play, return 2 forests you control to owner's hand, or you bury it. Lordy, man, you think back to the fact that you're paying 4 mana for a 4/4 and like, oh, that's too strong. We got to balance it out by slowing you down by having you bounce 2 lands. Oh, man, Magic has changed so much. All right. Flavor text says, 4 gray trees and a long coiling snake. What am I? Ooh, long coiling snakes. I don't know, buddy. But them trees sound unhealthy. Moving on. We've got Rock Slide. This artwork is intense, man. 1 red and X for an instant that says Rock Slide deals X damage divided any way you choose among any number of target attacking or blocking creatures without flying. Flavor text says, good old rock, nothing beats rock. And that's Rurok, the Goblin Archer. I like the idea of an archer who's just like, nothing beats rocks. And it's like, what about arrows, bro? And the concept behind the card is awesome, right? The idea of a rock slide coming down and smashing into people who are attacking or blocking makes perfect sense, right? Because you can set up essentially like an ambush and have this cascading down the mountains. The one thing I will say, though, is when you read it, it ultimately really does feel like a white card, doesn't it? Because white tends to be the, I'm going to punish you for attacking and blocking, whereas red tends to be the, I'm going to set the world on fire, I don't care what you're doing right now, burn, right? Like, that's the idea. The artwork, I always found this artwork to be incredibly striking, man. I don't know specifically exactly what it is, but there's a difference between the way the people are depicted and like just the art style used for that versus the art of like the actual slide itself. There's this contrast to it. And then there's these waves of flame coming off and the look of shock on these people's faces and this guy just booking it out like, we gotta get out of here. It is a great encapsulation. Honestly, this feels like a very well-designed Magic card from a flavor perspective, even if it doesn't really fit into Magic's color pie as well as it could. Moving on, we have Urborg Mind Sucker. Let me suck that mind, yo. 1 black and 2 for a 2/2 Mind Sucker. Pay 1 black, sacrifice Urborg Mind Sucker. Target opponent discards a card at random. Play this ability as a sorcery. Back in the day, there were tons of random discard effects. And let me tell you right now, random discard is way stronger than regular discard. The fact that you can just get donked out of your lands super easy can just end up like crippling you. That being said, this is pretty weak on the random discard scale, right? You're paying 4 mana in total to hit 1 card from their hand, and you can only do it at sorcery speed, right? Because it says place abilities as sorcery. So you can't use this guy to do super cheesy maneuvers where you can go, I'm going to block with him and sack him, or you also can't go, during your draw phase, after you've drawn, discard that card. If you guys didn't know, that's a legit move in Magic. During the draw step, you can wait until somebody's drawn their card and make them discard it before they leave the draw step. So this kind of discard would be a little more crippling in that position if it was usable that way. So if you could recur this over and over and get significant advantage from it, then maybe you could benefit from it. But this isn't a card that I ever saw really getting play. The flavor text says, my pet will pick the right fruit from your tortured brain as if it were hanging from a vine. All right, Kivik, calm down, buddy. That's pretty harsh. The artwork is intense, right? I love the fact that they chose to use this lady who's dressed in white laying here, right? Because it gives almost this sense of like purity and serenity and peace. But then behind it, you have the shadowy aspect of this mind sucker. And there's something about the blue haze around it that makes it feel like it's moving in undetected. She's still just kind of laying there, right? Restfully. Let me take a quick peek in here. Are her eyes closed? Yeah, okay. Her eyes are closed. So yeah, she's just asleep as it's sliding its tendrils into her mind. But this ends the life of the mind sucker as well. So how does that work? Does it basically like drain its life force out? Do the tentacles pulling out of its body end it the way a bee like loses when it loses its stinger? What's the deal? A lot of flavor here. Moving on. We got Shrieking Drake. This guy is a fun little goofball. 1 blue for a 1/1 flyer. When he comes into play, return a creature you control to owner's hand. So Shrieking Drake, I think, was the first creature ever made in Magic where you could create endless enter the battlefield effects and leave the battlefield effects if you wanted to, right? Because you could just basically go 1 blue, pay the cost for the Drake, pop it onto the board, now pop it back into my hand. So if you have something like Genesis Chamber that says make a 1/1 creature, whenever you put a creature out, boom, you can just go 1 blue equals a 1/1. You got 10 blue, you got 10 1/1s. You can do some fun, silly nonsense, toss a food chain in there. I actually did build a deck using Shrieking Drake and Genesis Chamber and other goofiness. But anyhow, I love this guy. I've always loved him since the oldest days. I found the card to be a very strange thing to me because it's like, he's a 1/1, right? But look at the artwork. Does that look like a 1/1 to you? Like, look, there's a dude running away from the Drake. He's standing on a pile of skulls. Normally, 1/1s are like humans, whatever humans. This looks like a dragon, bro. This looks like a 2/4 bear minimum, right? You look at that artwork and go, 1/1? What? Why is that a 1/1? It just shows up and screams and people run away. I like that that's what's going on. The reason a card goes back to your hand is basically you got somebody like, I can't take this screaming, bro. Either get rid of the Drake or get rid of me. You know, like that's the vibe. Flavor Text says, Kervik believes the Drake's cries herald his victory. In truth, they mourn aloud for his impending demise. What? That's cool. Are these Drakes able to see the future and they're somehow mournful for Kervik? That's neat, man. All right. And we've got Jamurin Lion. Ending off with the Lion King. 1 white and 2 for a 3/1. 1 white and tap it. Target creature can't block this turn. I actually played with this guy, and it was a lot of fun to go, nah, you can't block with that dude. Nah, you can't block with that dude. It was a little bit weird, like, how does the lion stop the guy from blocking? Don't worry about it. He's yelling at him or holding him down or something. But either way, no blocking for you. It works on everything for 1 mana. The flavor text says, the lion blinked. Femorous expression meaning situation avoided. The lion blinks so you could run away. So I guess it's just like you get into a staring contest with a lion and that's how you can't block this turn. Look into my eyes. Look deep into my eyes, Simba. Everything you see is our domain. Anyways, that wraps up the entire pack. What a strange rarity. My friends, I hope you enjoyed it. This is a bizarre rare. You know what? I'm going to leave a link up to some new Phyrexian lore over on Fantasy Geographic in case you're interested. Thanks for coming by. Big shout out to my patrons for supporting my channel. And also on the screen there will be a link to the playlist of all the historical openings. See you next time, friends.